Okay, I'm picking up where I left off from the last video. I'm about 21 or 22, and college is over. I've come back from my Guatemala trip, and I'm back living at home. Well, what was home anyway at that point. Again, I got involved with people in the occult. Go figure. This time, the people weren't quite as fluffy. Let me put it that way. They weren't quite as fluffy as I had been accustomed to in the occult world. And when I say the word fluffy, I mean they're not exactly harmless, but the people I had been involved with up to this point, they were fairly harmless. Mainly they were interested in exploring their femininity or masculinity, or they were interested in nature worship, or they're just dabblers, they just wanted to dabble. I got involved with a couple of people. One of them that I first started out with was a person who was involved in occultic study, and that person ended up pushing an agenda on me where the end goal is they wanted to have a homosexual relationship with me and me be their apprentice. So essentially, it was kind of like the Eros Eromenos type relationship that used to be in ancient Greece kind of thing. I think they were into that, but I cut that short. I did not want to be involved in that. It was frightening to me. It was scary. It brought out my issues with gender again. It really scared me. And God helped me to cut that out, because it was not something I wanted to have in my life. But I got involved with somebody worse. At that point, I got involved with a person who was involved with what people would call Freemasonry. It was an offshoot of Freemasonry that was started by a man. I'm not going to tell a whole lot about it, but it started by a man that, well, I will actually, just in case there are people involved in this, and I'll take a small aside. The man's name's Aleister Crowley. He was involved in Freemasonry. He was involved in the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and he started his own sect of it, which was called I think it was called the Ordo Templo Orientalis, which means the Order of the Eastern Temple. Also known, popular nomenclature, is the Lima. It really doesn't matter what it is, but the reason I'm explaining some of this stuff is because I think people are confused about it. It's worth noting that there are several prominent celebrities that ascribe to this particular philosophy, and this philosophy is wrong. It's evil. It's satanic. I never really could go that far deep into it because God had His hand on me, and it was too dark for me. It was really bad, I had always dabbled, though, in, I guess you could call it, the Kabbalah, and that's about as far as I went with it. But I don't support Kabbalism either. It's satanic as well, Another element or aspect was Gnosticism, which had been thrown at me for years. that's also bad too. I don't want to get too much into it because I'm supposed to be giving my testimony, but I mean, I was essentially involved in all these different things. I will say this because I don't usually get into this with my testimony, but at this point my contacts with demonic forces were very high. I was contacting and being contacted by them and going into trances and seeing them quite frequently. At the time I thought they were extraterrestrials, but they're not, they're demons. But I would communicate with them on a regular basis. And they readily were communicating with me. The damage they've done in my life is, well, I guess was because God's healed it, but they have done in the past a great deal of damage to me. At this time in my life, when they were around me, unthinkable emotional pain was there. Pain on levels that I can't even begin to describe to you. I was traumatized by it. These things are evil beyond measure. They present themselves as something great, but while they are telling you they're great and they're there to help humanity, they're killing your humanity at the same time. I will tell you that, and I take a moment to wait here, because it needs to be explained. These people and places and things, the demons, they're not more powerful than God. That's for sure. And Jesus can overcome them. And has overcome them. He has overcome them because He's the Lord. So I can't say He can because He has. But they can do a considerable amount of damage if you involve yourself with them. If you are a good, God-fearing Christian, or just a person who wants to be good in general, and you're involved in any aspect of or any subsidiary faction of Freemasonry, get out of it. You will. It is a portal to the devil. They worship Lucifer. They don't worship God. So that's also another unpopular opinion that I have to tell people, but it needs to be said. And I will say this also. The people I was involved with, when I got involved with this person, they were very serious about pushing the message to the world. I will say I was glad for their honesty about it. Because sometimes there's a lot of people in this group that are dishonest, but I appreciated the honesty about what they were aiming to do. But nonetheless, it is pure unadulterated Satanism. It's Luciferianism. After about 2 years, I no longer was involved with this person anymore. And I came back what was considered then home, but I got into worser things. To me, evil spirituality was kind of like a drug, and it was always coupled with say women. But when I say this to you, I don't say it like, ooh, women. It's not like that. You see, in the spiritual world, there is a cult that is known as the Baal Asherah cult. And in this world, usually there are two consorts. There is a male who is the high priest who represents the quote-unquote Lord, and there is a female who represents the high priestess, who is known as the lady. Now, in this world, it's a demonic, evil union on every level. It is the same union that Ahab and Jezebel had. The people that killed God's prophets. And I will say this. I am so thankful to Jesus Christ that He got me out of this cult. Because I hate this cult. I hate it with a passion. It stole many years of my life. It almost drove me to the point of insanity. People can be affected in ways they don't even know by seemingly mundane things. I see this cult happening all over Western society. This obsession with men and women by men and women is a cult. It is not normal. They're trying to fulfill the same cult that Nimrod started at Babylon with Semiramis. This cult of the Antichrist and the harlot of Babylon. It's the same thing. It's in the Bible. Look it up in Revelation. It's an homage to the Antichrist and the end. To talk about it is pretty intense. They'll set up a leader in leadership positions where this is going on. And honestly, if you really want to know the truth, read the Bible. It's in there. This cult is in the Bible. Read in 1st and 2nd Kings. And we need a spirit of Elijah to disrupt this. And I'm praying for it every day because I hate this cult. Anyway, so essentially, once I was gone from that person, I continued down that trek. Satan was trying to keep me in this cult. So I kept going after woman after woman after woman after woman. And finally I reached one who was into tantrism, which is another aspect of this cult, which makes it even worse. And like a train that was on a wobbly track, I just couldn't take it anymore, psychologically. I couldn't sleep. I could barely eat. I was going through psychological distress, you know. And to top it off, I was working a third shift job. That didn't help any because my sleep schedule was already screwed up because of it. Everything about my past started blending together, you know, good and bad. Those years, 2010 to 2012, that was like being in a demented funhouse. For those years, I mean, if I were to tell you everything that happened today, I'd laugh about it because it was weird. You would not believe how weird it was. It was like, I cannot believe that, how weird it is. The thoughts I had, you'd have thought, what are you smoking, man? Because you're crazy. I just was like, it was 2 years of just like I still to this day cannot believe that my mind got to that level, you know. It was kind of like Matthew 8, where Jesus went to the place of the Gadarenes, you know, and he found this demoniac among the tombs. I was that guy for 2 years. All I had to do is just walk out of my mind in the cemeteries, and I have a testimony on my arm today because for a while I was in such distress that I cut. I was a cutter for a while. There's still one scar left on my arm. And ironically, it's in the shape of a cross. I didn't plan that out, by the way. So what's interesting is that 2012 came, and that's when my life really started to change for the better. Big time. God brought me, because I asked, He brought me my wife. Well, she wasn't my wife then, but she became my wife. And she was a Christian, and she was ministering to me for about 2 years. No, actually 1 year before I got saved. About a year. And slowly, God was drawing me to Himself, you know. I didn't know that. You know, He was dealing with me in ways I could understand at first, you know. And one day, He presented Himself to me. Through my wife, He said, you know, Jesus died for the sins of all people, for the world. There's only Jesus. He said, I am God. Shortly after, I heard a teaching. And then I gave my life to Jesus Christ. And it wasn't like puny either. It was like a big deal. I cried like a baby. For the first time in my life, actually, that I can remember it, I was completely stripped naked, and I no longer had a past anymore. It was like I was a new person. I had all this knowledge in my head, and I asked God to help me with this knowledge. God, what do I do? Because I have all this stuff in my head. Help me make sense out of all of it, you know? And actually, over the years, ever since that, 2013, that's exactly what He's been doing. Actually, I think I'm going to make a third video to talk about the last part of my testimony here. And with that video, I'm going to talk about what God's been doing with me for the past 6 years. So let me start a new video.